Okay, we're back for the next instalment from our book, The Day My Bum Went Psycho. So we'll continue on with the chapter that we had been reading previously. It was a large chapter, so I've broken it up into two sections. So we'll keep reading now. So what are we going to do? Said Zach. We've got to find that bum Kano and plug it up as soon as possible, said the smacker. Let them stew in their own juices. Give them a taste of their own medicine, roared the kicker, who had red cheeks now instead of a deathly white pallor of only a few minutes before. Eleanor nodded. I agree, she said. Count me in, said the kisser. Me too, said Zach. Said Eleanor. Not you, Zach. We're dropping you off at the nearest bum shelter. This is a job for professionals. But what about my bum? Said Zach. What about it? She said. It's my bum, said Zach. I want it back. I know it's a bit out of control right now, but I'm kind of attached to it. Not anymore, you're not, said Eleanor. What you need is a prosthetic bum. A what? Said Zach, but Eleanor didn't answer him. Instead, she turned around and flung open the lid of one of the padded bench seats that ran along each side of the bummobile. She rummaged around in the compartment underneath the seat and pulled out a bum. A clear, wobbly silicon bum. She threw it to Zach. Here, she said, try this. It's a bit big, but it'll do until you can get properly fitted. But I don't want a false bum, said Zach, throwing it down onto the floor of the bummobile. I want my real bum. Don't be an idiot, said Eleanor. Real bums are nothing but trouble. Sooner or later, you're going to need to go to the toilet, and I guarantee you, you're not going to care what sort of bum you've got. She's right, you know, said the smacker, picking up the bum and gently putting it back in Zach's hands. We've all got falsies. They're the safest and the best. Take the bum. You'll need it. I still think I should come with you, said Zach. No, Zach, said the smacker. Eleanor's right about that too. A bumcano is no place for a civilian, for anyone for that matter. The odds are against us, but we've all had years of experience fighting bums. With a bit of luck, we can tip the odds back in our favour, but not with you there, Zach. I'm sorry. Perhaps you're right, said Zach. He gripped the false bum and kneaded it back and forth in his hands. He knew that was what Eleanor and the smacker had said had made sense, but deep down he still felt responsible for all the trouble his bum had caused. It didn't feel right just to do nothing. Bum shelter ahead, announced the kisser. Beginning descent. Seatbelts on, everybody. The kicker, Eleanor and Zach sat down and belted themselves in. The bummobile dived at a steep angle. Zach could feel his ears popping. He could see through the front windscreen that they were heading towards an enormous stainless steel dome with the number 5 painted on the top. A little way to the left of it was a landing pad. Zach sat back in his seat and prepared for touchdown. The kicker was bending over, pulling his laces tight. Any bums try anything while we're down here and you know what I'll do, he said. Kick their bums, said Eleanor. The kicker laughed and slapped her knee. You got it, he said. Then, looking at Zach, his smile evaporating, he said, and if I see any bum sympathisers, I'll kick their bums too. I'm not a bum sympathiser, said Zach, feeling scared again. The kicker could kick bums, that was for sure. He just wished that the kicker would stop threatening to kick his. Bummobile BH007 to Shelter 5, said the kisser into the handset. Permission to land requested. Over. The kisser waited and then repeated his request. That's odd, said the kisser. What's the matter? Said the smacker. I'm not getting any response, said the kisser. The radio is jammed, but there must be people inside the shelter. The brown flag is up. Land anyway, said the smacker. We'd better check it out. Roger, said the kisser. There was a hissing sound and the bummobile began to descend. The bummobile jolted to a stop. Uh-oh, said the smacker. Looks like we've got a welcoming committee. Zach looked out the window. The bummobile was surrounded by a group of mean-looking bums armed with bum trumpets. No wonder we've been having trouble getting through on the radio, said Eleanor. They've been jamming it with high-frequency emissions. Leave them to me. Eleanor crossed the floor to a large black cabinet and opened it. Inside was the most amazing arsenal of bum-hunting weaponry Zach had ever seen. There was every sort of bum-fighting weapon imaginable. Bum guns, spear guns, harpoons, stun guns and long pointy sticks. Some of the most deadly of all bum-fighting tools. There were bum magnets, bum shields, pink floppy toilet seat covers, toilet brushes, soaps in plastic holders, clothes pegs, rolls of sandpaper hanging on ready-to-roll dispensers and a full range of deodorisers and disinfectants. Eleanor replaced her bum blaster in the rack and selected a smaller gun with a large round barrel, a Constipator 240. Zach recognised it as a clogger. He knew they were good for inhibiting enemy fire. Eleanor clipped it to her belt and pulled down something that looked like a leaf blower. It looks like a leaf blower, said Zac. That's because it is, said Eleanor. You can fight hundreds of bums at a time with a leaf blower. It's also good for cleaning up and clearing the air afterwards. Eleanor slung the leaf blower across her shoulder and draped the rack of rubber bum plugs across her chest. Hold it, said the kisser. Let me handle this. Eleanor looked slightly disappointed. Are you sure? She said. Yeah, said the kisser. No point in using up ammunition if it's not strictly necessary. Besides, I could do with the exercise. Well, if you insist, said Eleanor. Oh, but I do, said the kisser. He stood up, applied some fresh lip gloss and brushed down his suit. Good luck, said Zac. Never fear, he said over his shoulder as he climbed out of the bummobile. The kisser's here. Zac locked the hatch and then sat down in the cockpit. He watched the kisser approach the circle of bums. They saw him and turned. The kisser bowed very low, so low his head almost touched the ground. The bums moved in around him, but the kisser made no attempt to escape. Instead, he did something very strange. He began to dance. Zac watched with a mixture of confusion and amusement as the kisser gyrated his hips and swayed from side to side in front of the bums. But as the kisser danced, an even stranger thing began to happen. The bums, as if mesmerised, began to dance with him. They moved slowly from side to side, mimicking his movements with a sort of clumsy grace. Then, without stopping the dance, the kisser began motioning to one of the larger bums to come to him. At first it seemed hesitant, but slowly, almost against its will, it crept towards him until it was close enough for the kisser to touch. The kisser then reached out and tickled the bum under its arm. As the kisser tickled it, the bum seemed to undergo an amazing transformation. Its cheeks went bright pink, it blushed and went weak at the knees. At this point, the kisser reached out and picked it up with both hands. It offered no resistance, brought it to his lips and kissed it. The bum went limp, as if dead, or at least in a faint. The kisser laid it on the ground next to him and began motioning to another bum, which submitted itself to him as easily as the first. Having charmed the bums, the kisser was now disarming them as they were no more dangerous than a pack of marauding marshmallows. It didn't take long before he'd kissed and immobilised every last bum. They lay in a large pile beside him. Wow, said Zac, that's incredible. Better him than me, said the kicker. There's no way I'd want to kiss a bum, not in a million years. Zac watched the kisser produce a silver hip flask from inside his jacket, tip his head back and swill the contents. Then he spat out a mouthful of greenish liquid and dabbed at the corners of his mouth with his white handkerchief. He took another swig and repeated the process. What's he doing? Said Zac. Gargling, said the smacker. I have to wash my hands after fighting bums, the kicker has to polish his boots, and the kisser has to wash his mouth out with industrial-grade disinfectant. As the great bum fighters have always said, if you want to make it a bum fighter, you have to keep it clean. It's a dirty business. Eleanor opened the hatch. Let's go, she said, climbing out of the bummobile. The kicker and the smacker followed her. Zac was about to follow when the radio crackled into life. Bum Shelter 5 to Bummobile BH007, said a voice. Do you copy? Zac picked up the handset and pushed the button. Loud and clear, he said. The radio seemed to be working fine now that the bums were out of action and no longer able to jam the airwaves. What's your position, Bummobile BH007, said the voice. We're on your landing pad, said Zac. The voice on the other end spluttered. You're what? You're in extreme danger. Repeat, extreme danger. Do not leave your craft under any circumstances. The whole area surrounding the bum shelter is infested with bums. It's okay, said Zac. The B team has them under control. You're the B team, said the voice. The B team? Well, said Zac, I'm not, but the B team is standing on your roof next to a pile of freshly kissed bums. Unbelievable, said the voice. We'll be right up. Zac climbed out of the cockpit, out through the hatch and jumped down onto the landing pad. He walked across to the pile of bums. Are they dead? He said to the kisser, who was applying fresh lip gloss to his swollen lips. No, said the kisser, just resting. They'll stay like that for a few weeks now. Plenty of time to be relocated to somewhere else where they can't do any harm. Plenty of time to kick their bums too, said the kicker, surging forward. No, said the kisser, stepping between him and the bums. They're not hurting anybody. Leave them be. But they're bums, said the kicker. Dirty, stinking, rotten, no good, filthy, smelly bums. Save your energy, said the smacker. You're going to need it. We've still got a long way to go. The kicker looked at the kisser. Whose side are you on anyway? He snarled. Isn't that obvious, said the kisser, dabbing at the corners of his mouth with his handkerchief, which was not quite so white anymore. Ignore him, said the smacker. He's spouting more hot air than all those bums put together. "Boy, are we glad to see you," said a voice behind him. "Those bums have been giving us merry hell all morning." Zack turned around to see a small, officious-looking man. He was dressed like a soldier from the First World War. "Welcome to Bum Shelter 5, he said, saluting. "I'm Captain Vincent Brown. Won't you all come inside? It's crowded, but we've always got room for a few more." "Thanks," said the smacker, "but we've got to keep moving." She put her hands on Zack's shoulder. "We just want to leave young Zack here, if that's okay with you." "That's fine, of course," said the captain. "Any friend of the B team is a friend of ours." Zack turned to the smacker, trying to blink back tears. "I really wish I could come with you," he said. The smacker put her arm around him. "You have to stay, Zack," she said. "You don't want to get mixed up with the world of bum fighting." "I'm already mixed up in it," he said. "That's my bum out there. I've got a responsibility to stop it. If anyone can talk it out of this, I can." "No, Zack," said the smacker gently. "You got a false bum now. Put it on and forget about your first one. Here, I'll give you a hand. Just loosen your belt a little." Zack was too upset to argue. He loosened his belt. The smacker took the false bum from Zack's hands and pushed it down the back of his pants and into place. She patted it gently. "How's that?" she said. Suddenly, Zack was overwhelmed by a powerful urge to go to the toilet. "Where's the nearest toilet?" he asked Captain Brown. "Just go down the steps and turn right," he said. Zack made it just in time. He was pleased to discover that the false bum worked just like a regular bum. In fact, at least in one way, it was even better. It was self-wiping. Maybe the smacker was right, thought Zack. He wondered if he'd be better off staying at the bum shelter with his false bum and forgetting about his real bum. But he couldn't. His bum was trying to take over the world. He couldn't just stay there and pretend it wasn't happening. He had to do something. He knew that the B team weren't going to allow him to come with them. Not if they knew about it, but what if they didn't know about it? What if he stowed away? Zack figured that all he'd have to do is stay hidden until they'd passed out of the range of any other bum shelters, and then they'd have no choice but to take him. It was worth a try. Zack climbed back up the steps to the door. At the top of the steps there was an emergency telephone. He wondered whether he should ring his gran and let her know that he was all right. If his plan to stow away worked, he might not get another chance, and there was no telling how long he could be away. He didn't know what he would tell her, but he didn't want her to be worrying about him. She had enough to worry about, with the war probably and her own bum before too long. Zack rang her number. She picked up the receiver after only one ring, as if expecting his call. "Hello?" he said. "Zack?" She said. "Zack, is that you?" "Yes, Gran," said Zack, a little bit surprised. "How did you know?" "You weren't in your bed this morning. Is everything all right?" "Sure, Gran," said Zack. "I'm fine." "Really?" said his Gran. "I thought you might have been conscripted." Zack suddenly had his excuse. It was perfect. "Actually," he said, "I have been conscripted. I might not be home for a while." "Do you know where they're sending you?" she said. "I'm on a secret mission, Gran," he lied. "Can't say too much on the phone." "I quite understand," she said. "Thanks, Gran," said Zack. "I've got to go now." "Well, good luck," she said. "I've got just one piece of advice for you, Zack." "What's that, Gran?" he said. "Don't forget to wash your hands." And then she was cut off. Zack tried to ring back, but the line was dead. Why had Gran warned him to wash his hands? He wondered. It was a strange piece of advice to give someone who was apparently going off to war, unless it was a bum war, of course. But how could she have known that? It was probably just a grandmotherly sort of thing to say, like, "Look both ways before you cross the road," or "Remember to brush your teeth." Zack shook his head. Whatever it was, he didn't have time to figure it out now. He had to get on board the bummobile while there was still time. And that's the end of the chapter. Thanks for listening.